He was a man of God, until his darkest secret was exposed. Not by the police, not by the media, but by the one woman he thought he controlled. This is the story of a pastor who preached morality while living a lie, and the assistant who made sure he paid for it. Welcome to Vic's True Crime Stories, where the lines between justice and revenge blur. We don't just tell crime stories, we expose the secrets no one dares to whisper, the scandals buried by power, the victims the world ignored, and the moments when someone finally fought back. The city knew his name before they knew his face. Marcus M. Tyner wasn't just a pastor, he was an institution. When he stepped into the pulpit of New Life Baptist Church, the air changed. Women straightened their hats. Men adjusted their ties. Children sat up a little taller, sensing they were in the presence of something extraordinary. His voice could shake the rafters one moment and drop to a whisper that had grandmothers dabbing at their eyes the next. The Chicago Tribune called him the people's preacher. The mayor consulted him on community affairs. His charity drives fed thousands. His summer programs kept kids off dangerous streets. To the world, Marcus Tyner was a living testament to what faith could accomplish. But faith, like glass, is fragile. And what the congregation couldn't see, what they refused to see, were the hairline fractures running through their beloved pastor. Elisa Cooper needed that job like a drowning woman needs air. Her mother's medical bills piled up like autumn leaves, chemotherapy, medications, home care. When New Life Baptist posted an opening for an executive assistant, she'd prayed over the application. The salary could keep her mother in treatment. The benefits might cover her own medications. When the call came, "Ms. Cooper, Pastor Tyner would like to meet you." She'd worn her best navy dress, the one that made her look professional but not flashy. She'd practiced her handshake in the mirror. That first meeting would haunt her. The pastor's office smelled of leather and expensive cologne. Behind his mahogany desk, Marcus Tyner looked like a man carved from oak. Broad shoulders, strong hands, a smile that warmed the room. "Elisa," he'd said, lingering over her name like it was scripture. His hand enveloped hers, holding on just a heartbeat too long. "We've been waiting for someone like you." At the time, she'd flushed with pride. Later, she'd remember how his thumb had stroked her knuckle, how his eyes had dipped to her collarbone when he thought she wasn't looking. The job started normally enough. Scheduling meetings, proofreading sermons. Then came the late nights. "The board report needs finishing," he'd say, loosening his tie as the church emptied. "You don't mind staying, do you?" The first time his hand brushed the small of her back as he reached for a file, she told herself it was an accident. When he complimented her perfume, she'd mumbled, "Thank you," and changed the subject. But then came the texts, innocuous at first, then increasingly personal. "That color looks beautiful on you. You're different from the other secretaries. Meet me at the Marriott. We'll discuss your raise." Elisa kept a journal. At first, it was just work notes. Then it became something darker. Dates, times, quotes. July 14th, asked me to massage his shoulders. Said I had healing hands. August 3rd, cornered me in the supply closet. Told me I'd never find another job like this. The pages filled like a storm, gathering strength. Meanwhile, Pastor Tyner's sermons grew more fiery. His condemnation of sin more thunderous. He railed against infidelity one Sunday, his gold wedding band catching the light as he pounded the podium. The congregation amened. They wept. They had no idea their shepherd was the wolf. Then came the night everything changed. A locked office door, a hand on her thigh, whispered words that had nothing to do with God. "You want this," he told her, his breath hot against her neck. "I can feel how much you want this." Elisa's body went rigid. Her mind raced. Her mother's face flashed before her. The medical bills, the treatments, the way her hands shook when she tried to button her blouse. That night, Elisa Cooper stopped being a victim. She started planning. The journal entries took on a new tone. No longer just recordings of wrongs, but strategies, contingencies. She noted which hotel rooms he booked, saved every incriminating text, recorded phone calls where his voice turned husky with desire. all while smiling in staff meetings, fetching his coffee, playing the dutiful assistant. Marcus Tyner never suspected a thing. Why would he? In his world, women existed to serve or to be served. The idea that quiet, efficient Elisa Cooper might be his downfall would have made him laugh. But the best hunters know how to wait. And Elisa? She was just getting started. The stage was set, the players in position. All it would take was one push, one carefully calculated revelation, to send the mighty Marcus Tyner tumbling from grace. And Elisa Cooper? She had the receipts. The diagnosis came on a Tuesday. Elisa Cooper sat in that sterile hospital room, the paper gown crinkling beneath her, as the doctor's mouth formed words that didn't seem real at first. HIV positive. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry insects as the world tilted sideways. She remembered the man, the one who'd sworn he was clean, the one who'd laughed when she asked to see test results. Now his lies lived in her blood. The phone call to her mother took 3 tries to complete, her fingers slipping on the keypad as tears blurred her vision. "It'll be okay, baby," her mother had whispered, but they both knew what the medical bills would do to them. That was before New Life Baptist, before Marcus Tyner, before everything twisted into something far darker. The first time he cornered her after hours, the church had that hollow, empty sound, all echoes and creaking floors. "Elisa," he murmured, blocking the office doorway with his broad frame. "You feel it too, don't you? This connection." His hand grazed her cheek, the gold band on his finger glinting in the lamplight. "God brought us together for a reason." The words slithered between them, sacrilege wrapped in scripture. She'd pressed herself against the filing cabinet, the cold metal biting through her blouse, as his breath, mint and something darker, whiskey maybe, washed over her face. She wasn't his first. That truth came later, whispered in a diner booth by a woman named Kimberly Shaw, her hand shaking around a coffee cup. "He made me meet him at the Hampton Inn off Route 12, she confessed, stirring sugar she didn't need. When I said no, he told the board I'd stolen from the collection plate. Kimberly's laugh was a broken thing. Who believed me over Pastor Perfect? The journal began that night. Not the neat work notes she kept for the church, but a second one, hidden beneath her mattress. The first entry bled through the page where her pen had pressed too hard. "He'll regret ever touching me." 3 words circled like vultures: proof, plan, payback. For months, she played her part with chilling precision. The eager assistant, the devoted employee, all while documenting every inappropriate text, every lingering touch, every hotel room receipt slipped into his sermon notes. The recorder in her purse caught his promises, "I'll take care of you," and his threats, "You think anyone will hire you if I say not to?" The Marcus Tyner in those recordings didn't sound like a man of God. He sounded like a predator who'd grown too comfortable hunting in his own pews. Then came the night she let him believe he'd won. The Marriott room smelled of stale air freshener and ambition. She watched from the bathroom doorway as he undressed, his sermon about purity from that morning still clinging to him like cheap cologne. His hands trembled slightly as he unbuckled his belt. Excitement or early-stage neuropathy, she couldn't tell. Didn't care. When he reached for her, she didn't flinch. When he whispered filth against her neck, she counted the seconds in her head. And when it was over, when he lay snoring in a tangle of sweat-damped sheets, she left something behind on the nightstand. A pill bottle, her name clear on the label. The medicine inside, not so clear. 3 months. That's how long she gave it. 3 months of watching him scratch at phantom itches during sermons, of catching him wince when he thought no one was looking. 3 months of journal entries that grew colder, sharper, as the virus, her unwitting accomplice, did its work. She'd smile when he complimented her blouse, nod when he bragged about his marriage, all while watching the clock tick down toward ruin. Because Elisa Cooper had learned something in that hospital room all those months ago. Some diseases don't just live in the body. They fester in the soul. And Marcus Tyner? He'd been infected long before he ever touched her. The reckoning was coming. Not with fire and brimstone, but with lab results and sworn testimony. And this time, When the pastor stood before a congregation, it wouldn't be to preach. It would be to beg. The first cough came during a baptism. Marcus Tyner stood waist-deep in a baptismal pool, his white robes billowing around him like angels' wings, when the spasm hit. A sharp, wet sound that made the front pews exchange glances. He recovered quickly, laughing it off as he lifted the teenager from the water. Even pastors get choked up seeing souls reborn. The congregation laughed with him. They always laughed with him. But the cough didn't stop. Week 2 found him pausing mid-sermon to sip water, his hand trembling around the glass. Week 3, the choir noticed dark circles under his eyes that makeup couldn't hide. By week 4, sweat soaked through his suit jacket before the opening prayer ended. Just a summer cold, he told concerned elders, mopping his brow with a monogrammed handkerchief. But the whispers had already started snaking through the pews. Old Mrs. Whitaker swore she saw him stumble in the parking lot. Brother Jenkins claimed the pastor had lost 20 pounds. Then came the Sunday. He forgot Lydia Baker's name at her own baby dedication. The sanctuary froze. Lydia, holding her squirming infant in lace christening gown, turned beet red. Marcus blinked at them like a man waking from a dream, his mouth working silently before he faked a sneeze. "Forgive me, sister. This allergy medicine has me in a fog." But the excuse rang hollow as the collection plate. That afternoon, 3 deacons called an emergency meeting. That evening, Florence Tyner canceled her garden club brunch to drive her husband to a private clinic. They never made it to the clinic. Because while Marcus was searching for his car keys, Jordan Pierce from Channel 7 News kicked open the hornet's nest. The breaking news alert hit phones just before evening service. Megachurch pastor linked to HIV scandal. Multiple women come forward. The footage showed Kimberly Shaw wiping tears under the stark TV lights. "He told me God wanted us to be together," she whispered, as the ticker below her flashed words like adultery and criminal investigation. Detective Boone found the journals that same night. Elisa had left them in her desk drawer, neatly labeled like a gift. Page after page of dates, quotes, hotel receipts. But beneath the last entry, tucked between the pages like a blade between ribs, was a photo. Marcus and a teenage girl from the youth choir, his hand riding too high on her back. The timestamp placed it 2 days after the girl's 17th birthday. Boone's whistle cut through the precinct noise. "We got him," he muttered, reaching for his cuffs. And not just for what he did to Cooper. Florence Tyner's scream could be heard 3 houses down when the detectives arrived. She threw her Limoges vase at Marcus's head, the porcelain exploding against the wall in a shower of hand-painted roses. 23 years, she shrieked, her pearls swinging like a noose. 23 years of fundraisers and prayer circles while you were what? Collecting choir girls like baseball cards. Marcus crouched behind the sofa like a child, his tailored suit suddenly hanging off his gaunt frame. The mighty Pastor Tyner, reduced to begging his wife between coughing fits. "Florence, baby, you know how women lie dash." The slap left a red handprint on his sermon-perfect cheek. Elisa watched it all unfold from her kitchen table, the local news playing on her laptop as she sipped chamomile tea. She didn't smile when they perp-walked Marcus out in handcuffs. Didn't cheer when the church announced his permanent removal. But when Florence's lawyer called, when that cultured voice on the line asked, "Did my husband give you what he has?" Elisa finally let the mask slip. "Ask him," she whispered, clicking off as the first real tear hit the tablecloth. Because here's the thing about revenge. It doesn't taste like victory when it finally comes. It tastes like blood and salt, and the hollow echo of a door slamming on the life you might have had. The pills in Marcus's system would keep him alive for years. Long enough to stand trial. Long enough to watch his empire crumble. Long enough to understand exactly how it felt to be powerless. And Elisa Cooper? She'd already packed her bags. The courtroom smelled of polished wood and stale regret. Every seat was filled. Reporters leaning forward in the press box. Church members clutching Bibles like lifelines. Curious strangers elbowing for space in the back. They'd all come to see the spectacle. Pastor Marcus Tyner, once the pride of Chicago's South Side, now reduced to a hollow-cheeked defendant in an ill-fitting suit. The fluorescent lights caught the sweat on his forehead as the prosecutor held up Elisa Cooper's journal for the jury to see. Page after page of calculated revenge, the lawyer declared, his fingers stabbing at a highlighted entry. She documented his symptoms like some twisted experiment. The journal spine cracked as he flipped to another page. Here, day 87. He's losing weight. Good. Does that sound like a victim to you? Elisa sat perfectly still through it all. She didn't flinch when the defense attorney painted Marcus as a predator who'd groomed half the women in his congregation. Didn't blink when Kimberly Shaw took the stand and described the Hampton Inn room where Marcus had promised her a promotion in exchange for silence. But when little Angela Ruiz, barely 19 in her demure cardigan, whispered into the microphone about what Marcus had done to her in his office after youth group, Elisa's hands clenched so tight her nails left crescent moons in her palms. Outside the courthouse, the city had split like a rotten melon. Protesters waved signs that read, "Justice for Elisa," alongside one screaming, "God judges, not bitter women." News vans clogged the streets, their satellite antennas reaching skyward like mechanical prayers. Old Mrs. Whitaker from the choir sobbed into a reporter's microphone. "I bake in casseroles every Thursday for 12 years. Who was I really feeding?" Meanwhile, young men in Marcus's old youth group gathered outside the church, their voices rising in ragged hymns as if music could wash away the stain. The jury deliberated for 3 days. Long enough for Florence Tyner to empty the joint accounts. Long enough for the church board to quietly remove Marcus's portrait from the lobby. Long enough for Elisa to stare at the ceiling of her rented room each night, wondering if any verdict could possibly make things right. When the bailiff finally read the decision, guilty of reckless conduct, not guilty of intentional transmission, the courtroom erupted. Marcus slumped forward, his shoulders shaking with dry sobs. Elisa simply exhaled, as if she'd been holding her breath for years. But the real judgment came from the bench. Judge Calloway removed her glasses slowly, letting the silence stretch until even the reporters stopped typing. "This case was never just about HIV," she said, her voice cutting through the stuffy air. "It was about what happens when power goes unchecked, when institutions protect abusers instead of the abused." She looked directly at Marcus. "You turned God's house into your hunting ground. And you." Her gaze shifted to Elisa. "You let your pain turn you into something you're not proud of. That's the real tragedy here." The gavel fell with a sound like a coffin closing. Florence filed for divorce that afternoon. She took half the church's money, the lake house, and a Mercedes, but left every photo of Marcus at the curb with the recycling. The congregation splintered like kindling, some members following a new pastor, others abandoning faith altogether. As for Marcus, prison would keep him alive longer than he deserved, courtesy of state-provided medications. And Elisa Cooper? She boarded a Greyhound bus the day after the trial, her mother's ashes in a simple urn beside her. Some said she headed west. Others swore they saw her working at an AIDS clinic in Atlanta. But the only trace she left behind was a single unmarked envelope slid under Detective Boone's door. Inside, a list of names, 12 girls from the youth choir, their contact information neatly typed. Because some stories don't end with verdicts. They end with whispers, and the quiet, terrible hope that someone is still listening. Time has a way of sanding down even the sharpest edges of scandal, but some stains never fully fade. Marcus Tyner became a ghost in the system. The once commanding voice that had filled stadiums now rattled with each breath in a prison infirmary. His appeals drained what little money Florence hadn't taken, and the visitor's log remained conspicuously empty year after year. The other inmates knew better than to touch the sickly preacher, not out of respect, but because the guards had warned them about the nature of his illness. He spent his days writing desperate letters to church boards that never wrote back, and his nights staring at the ceiling, counting the cracks like they were parishioners who'd abandoned him. The state provided his medications, but not his dignity. That had been stripped away long before the sentencing. Meanwhile, in a small office in Albuquerque, A woman who no longer went by Elisa Cooper answered phones for a nonprofit called Second Chances. The walls were lined with pamphlets about safe sex and PrEP medications, the shelves stocked with free condoms and testing kits. She wore her hair shorter now, and the hollows under her eyes had softened with time. When new clients asked how she'd gotten into this work, she'd simply say, life experience, and steer the conversation toward their needs. Only late at night, when reviewing grant applications, would she sometimes pause at certain names. Marcus, Florence, Kimberly, her pen hovering over the paper like a hummingbird, uncertain where to land. Back in Chicago, the New Life Baptist Church tried desperately to scrub itself clean. They repainted the sanctuary in cheerful yellows, as if brightness could disinfect the shadows. The new pastor, a soft-spoken woman from Milwaukee, preached about forgiveness and fresh starts, but the pews told a different story. Where 3,000 had once gathered, now barely 300 showed up on Good Sundays. The youth program folded entirely after the lawsuit settled. Visitors sometimes paused at the Memorial Garden, reading plaques dedicated to better days, unaware they were standing where the old pastor's office furniture had been burned in secret one rain-soaked night. The city itself seemed to exhale slowly, moving on as cities do. Reporters found fresher scandals. The protesters packed up their signs. Even Detective Boone retired, though he kept one file, the one with 12 names, in his home desk drawer, just in case. As for Florence Tyner, she opened a boutique in Sarasota, specializing in expensive hats for wealthy widows. The only time her perfect composure cracked was when a customer once remarked how brave she was to start over. "Oh, darling," she'd laughed, adjusting a veiled fascinate in the mirror. "Some endings are really just overdue beginnings." And so the story drifted into urban legend, whispered about in Bible study groups, debated in law school ethics classes, occasionally resurfacing when another megachurch scandal made headlines. But in quiet moments, if you listen closely, you can almost hear the echoes. The cough that started it all, the gavel's final bang, the bus engine rumbling away at dawn. Because the truth about consequences is this: they don't end when the cameras leave. They ripple outward in ways no one can predict, lapping at shores we may never see. The pastor became a cautionary tale. The church became a shell. And the woman at the center of it all, she became someone else entirely. But that, as they say, is another story. And now, dear viewer, the question lingers in the air between us. Heavy, unavoidable, demanding to be answered. Was she right? Was Elisa Cooper justified in what she did? Did the scales of justice finally balance when that pill bottle was left behind? Or did she become the very monster she sought to destroy? Look at your screen now. The poll is waiting for your verdict. Hero or villain? Victim or perpetrator? The choice is yours, and there are no easy answers here. But let me ask you something more personal, more dangerous. If it were you, if you've been backed into that corner, your body violated, your future stolen, your pain ignored by the very institutions meant to protect you, what would your breaking point look like? Would you have walked away, gone to the police? Or would you, in your darkest hour, have done exactly what Elisa did? The truth is, we never really know what we're capable of until the world pushes us too far. This isn't where our story ends. Behind the scenes, we've uncovered new victims coming forward with stories that will chill you to the bone. More powerful men, more shattered lives, more moments where the line between justice and revenge blurs into nothingness. Hit subscribe right now, because trust me, you don't want to miss what comes next. That notification might just be the most important one you'll ever receive. Until then, sleep well, if you can.